Well, welcome back to some more of that good old insanity in America. Media hype, media bias, and of course our president and the Department of Justice now getting in on the act to try to further the cause. You know, I'm about to show you a clip from today, and oh, how heart-touching it was. Our president said that Trayvon could have been me 35 years ago or so. Well, for once, I'm inclined to agree with the president. Trayvon attacked the innocent who were trying to protect others, just like the president does. In other words, in attacking the innocents. You know, Trayvon Martin had the choice of just walking away and going on home, if that's indeed what he was doing. But rather than doing that, or simply making contact with Zimmerman and seeing that he was just a man who was involved with the neighborhood watch, in other words, like a lot of communities have, and then going on his way, he decided that he did not like being watched and aggressively attacked Zimmerman, resulting in his death. You know, it's funny that the NSA, the CIA, and the FBI, and all the things that are going on right now in America, where average everyday Americans, average everyday people, everyday Joes, are being monitored and watched, having their emails read, having their blogs looked at, having their web pages watched, having their private and cell phone conversations listened into. And you know what? They don't like being watched either. Yet the president condones this action and calls it a matter of national security. But when it's the matter of neighborhood security, the president seems to be on the opposite side of the spectrum with concerns to race. The IRS targets conservatives and Christians, that is to say conservative and Christian groups, but that seems to be okay with the president and with the Department of Justice. Gee, isn't there a word for that? Let's see. I think it's called profiling or stereotyping. You know, that thing which the president and all other progressive socialist liberals claim to hate so badly. I mean, the well-known left-wing senator, Ted Kennedy, was against profiling of suspected terrorists and phone taps and surveillance of them. But the president seems to be for all these things when it comes to Americans. So which is it, Mr. President? Is your decision for watching and monitoring based upon partisan politics, or with regards to race, as to how you feel about it? You know, one thing is for sure, when you said this administration would be the most transparent in history, you weren't kidding, because anyone should be able to see right through what is going on here. That is, if they have eyes in their head and brains in their head.
The reason I actually wanted to come out today is not to take questions, but to speak to an issue that obviously has gotten a lot of attention over the course of the last week.
Of course it has.
The issue of the Trayvon Martin ruling. I gave a preliminary statement right after the ruling on Sunday, but watching the debate over the course of the last week, I thought it might be useful for me to expand on my thoughts a little bit. First of all, I want to make sure that, once again, I send my thoughts and prayers, as well as Michelle's, to the family of Trayvon Martin, and to remark on the incredible grace and dignity with which they've dealt with the entire situation.
Yeah, how about the Zimmermans?
I can only imagine what they're going through, and it's remarkable how they've handled it. The second thing I want to say is to reiterate what I said on Sunday, which is there are going to be a lot of arguments about the legal issues in the case. I'll let all the legal analysts and talking heads address those issues. The judge conducted the trial in a professional manner. The prosecution and the defense made their arguments. The juries were properly instructed that in a case such as this, reasonable doubt was relevant, and they rendered a verdict. And once the jury's spoken, that's how our system works. But I did want to just talk a little bit about context.
That's agreeing with him, right, Mr. Obama?
How people responded to it and how people are feeling. When Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me.
Yeah, if he had known Bill Ayers and been a student of Saul Alinsky, the Luciferian socialist.
Community, at least. There's a lot of pain around what happened here. I think it's important to recognize that the African American community is looking at this issue through a set of experiences and a history that doesn't go away.
Yeah, because you keep it alive.
There are very few African American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store.
Yeah, why do you think that is, Mr. President?
There are very, very few African American men who haven't had the experience of walking across the street and hearing the locks click on the doors of cars.
Yeah, well, look at the statistics, Mr. President.
Before I was a senator. There are very few African Americans who haven't had the experience of getting on an elevator and a woman clutching her purse nervously and holding her breath until she had a chance to get off.
Yeah, watch the news sometime. It
happens.
What's reported.
Often. And I don't want to exaggerate this.
Oh, no, of course not.
Those sets of experiences inform how the African American community interprets what happened one night in Florida. And it's inescapable for people to bring those experiences to bear. The African American community is also knowledgeable that there is a history of racial disparities in the application of our criminal laws. Everything from the death penalty to enforcement of our drug law.
Yeah, usually the death penalty is given when someone commits murder.
Ends up having an impact in terms of how people interpret the case. Now, this isn't to say that the African American community is naive about the fact that African American young men are disproportionately involved in the criminal justice system, that they're disproportionately both victims and perpetrators of violence. It's not to make excuses for that fact, although black folks do interpret the reasons for that in a historical context. They understand that some of the violence that takes place in poor black neighborhoods around the country is born out of a very violent past in this country.
Yeah, a past which you try to keep alive.
Dysfunction that we see in those communities can be traced to a very difficult history. And so the fact that sometimes that's unacknowledged adds to the frustration. And the fact that a lot of African American boys are painted with a broad brush, and the excuse is given, well, there are these statistics out there that show that African American boys are more violent. Using that as an excuse to then see sons treated differently causes pain. I think the African American community is also not naive in understanding that statistically, somebody like Trayvon Martin was probably statistically more likely to be shot by a peer than he was by somebody else.
Yeah, black on black crime is far more than white on black crime.
Folks understand the challenges that exist for African American boys. But they get frustrated, I think, if they feel that there's no context for it. And that context is being denied.
Yeah, if they feel, key word.
And that all contributes, I think, to a sense that if a white male teen was involved in the same kind of scenario, that from top to bottom, both the outcome and the aftermath might have been different.
Yeah, might have.
Now, the question for me at least, and I think for a lot of folks is, where do we take this? How do we learn some lessons from this and move in a positive direction?
Oh, you won't do that. You'll use it to your advantage.
There have been demonstrations and vigils and protests.
Riots.
Some of that stuff is going to have
damage.
to work its way through as long as it remains nonviolent.
Yeah, right.
If I see any violence, then I will remind folks that that dishonors what happened to Trayvon Martin and his family. But
how about what happened to George Zimmerman and his family?
The question is, are there some concrete things that we might be able to do? I know that Eric Holder is reviewing what happened.
Oh, yes, he is.
But I think it's important for people to have some clear expectations here. Traditionally, these are issues of state and local government. The criminal code and law enforcement is traditionally done at the state and local levels, not at the federal levels.
You're going to see that don't happen.
That doesn't mean, though, that as a nation, we can't do some things that I think would be productive. So let me just give a couple of specifics that I'm still bouncing around with my staff. So we're not rolling out some 5-point plan, but some areas.
What are you going to do, right? Some more presidential executive privilege orders?
Where I think there are a lot of resources and best practices that could be brought to bear if state and local governments are receptive. And I think a lot of them would be.
Yeah, we know you'd like a police state.
Push out that.
Enough. You know what really gripes me about this the most is that there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of American servicemen return home in metal caskets flag draped. Of all colors. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. And the president never said of them, this could have been my son. Or this could have been me 35 years ago. Of course, the president never got anywhere near the military. But it just goes to show you that this president, although he's speaking as though he's completely neutral of this, is going to allow this federal investigation to go forth, and you watch and see if he doesn't. And he apparently has no pity or no feelings towards the Zimmermans who have been put through hell through this. And it was Trayvon Martin who initiated this. In other words, he could have walked on home, he could have ignored George Zimmerman and gone on home, or he could have walked up to him and said, "What are you doing following me?" And Zimmerman could have said, "I'm Neighborhood Watch." Now, to most people, that would be a comfort to know that Neighborhood Watch was out there watching. But no, he decided to take the other route and attack Zimmerman. And unfortunately for him, he was killed in the process. But the jury came back with the right verdict, and that's the way it is. And just because people don't like it, they've been protesting and raising hell. And that is not justice.